In this lesson, we're going to go over freeform modeling. We're going to be modeling with polygons, but we're going to be doing things in a freeform style. So it's going to be a little bit looser. We're going to be making some kind of more organic forms and shapes. We're going to be modeling with polygons. Modeling polygons are the core of my modeling. And there's lots of ways to shape them and different things you can do with them. You can obviously make very structured forms, like engineering and architectural forms, or what we call hard surface modeling. But we're going to be focusing on creating a bit more organic forms starting from a cube. So here we are in our standard Maya scene. I've created one of our basic cubes here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to be, from this cube, we're actually going to make a kind of big, kind of interesting sculptural form. I'm going to show you just some techniques for doing this. And what we're going to do is we're going to be focusing on the modeling toolkit here. Okay, and I'm going to go over just a couple methodologies and ways to make them all out. So we're going over like the basics of the modeling toolkit. And there's a lot in here, so it's going to take a while to get used to this whole thing. But here's, in this lesson, we're going to start using this to create a form. Okay, so I'm going to use mostly faces and extrusions, and I'm going to create some parts with this thing. Then I'm going to show you how to use a lot of these tools here. So we've gone over here how you select things. So here's your global selection. So if you want to select by object, here's if you want to select vertices on something. Here's if you want to select edges. And for this lesson, we're going to be doing a lot of edge selecting and a lot of face selecting as well. So anyway, what I'm going to do is we're going to select a face, and we're going to be really working with this tool a lot, the extrusion tool. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how to extrude some faces out of this thing. So I'm going to extrude a few different faces out of this. I'm going to extrude a face up, I'm going to extrude a face down, and I'm going to show you how to, we're going to make like a little, almost like a little cross here, okay? So I'm going to hit extrude, all right? So now you see this widget here, and I'm going to start moving it up. This looks just like our usual, like our transform widget, okay? But it's got everything in it all at once. It's got the transform, the move arrows by axis. It's got scale, so you can scale things, and it's got the circle for rotation, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start moving this up, okay? And if you see it's moving, nothing different with this one. I'm going to go over to this view here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up on its axis here. I'm going to make a full secondary cube there. And what I did is I snapped it to the grid, so I held down the X key and snapped it. Okay? So I'm going to make the first section of this kind of pretty clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing in the other direction, right? Just so I can. So I have this here. What you do is you select whatever it is you want to extrude, right? And you hit the extrude button. Then you start pulling on one of these things, okay? And then if you want it to be snapping to an axis, then what you do is go to that window, and then you can hold the X key, or you can press the snap to grid button here. Okay. Okay. So I'm moving it 2 units down, the same as this cube here, center cube. Okay. So generally, I use hotkeys more than I use actually buttons up here, because sometimes you forget that you have those pressed. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to introduce something else over here. Is if I wanted to extrude this, right? I'm going to do Control Z because what I want to do is I want to have the same thing happening on the side. I want it symmetric on these two here. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over here, this button, this little arrow here. It says symmetry, and you see you have a whole bunch of selections in here. So you have what you call object X, Y, and Z. So that's from your objects. So that's taking into mind the grid pattern and the coordinates of your model. right? And then here, if you have world X, world Y, and world Z, this will take on the directions of the world. It's a world unit space, okay? So for this model, it doesn't really matter because they're the same. But if I want the object X, then it would change a little bit. And if I want the world X, then you don't really see much difference. Okay. So I'm just going to go object X right now. So now if you notice, what's happening now? I'm not going to do anything here, but if I select something, so if I select here, you notice everything selects on either side. So the same thing here. Let me go here, see? It automatically selects on each side. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the face, and go to extrude. Now if you notice, here's what's going to happen. You notice it's extruded out on both sides. I'm going to go over to this window too, because I want to snap it to a specific point, or a grid point. So I'm going to hold down my X key, so I'm going to snap the grid. Right? So now look, now I have this perfect cross here. Okay? All right. So this is what I'm going to start with on this one. Okay? Now, the first thing is I'm going to I'll turn this off, because if you leave this on, sometimes you forget that's on, and then maybe some parts you don't want to be symmetric, or you're doing some other operation, and you'll get funny results. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to extrude another face. Okay? I'm going to pick this top face here. I'm going to hit extrude. I'm going to keep going up. But you can do stuff. You can actually move stuff while you're actually going up. Okay? I'm going to go to this view just so I know that I'm going up. So no, you know what? Let me actually translate here. Actually typing a translation here. If you wanted to have it exact, yeah, there you go. So if you wanted to translate directly, like you can actually give it a number there. It's kind of like the same thing in some of these boxes here. You want to give it an exact number. Okay? Or you could snap the grid. But you can also do other things while you're in this tool here as well. Like I could rotate it while I'm here. Okay, so if we want to rotate it, so now I'm giving it a slight rotation. Okay, and then maybe I want to scale it while I'm in here. Okay, you can scale it. Okay. And you could move it too. Okay. Now you'll see. I'm kind of modeling and I'm extruding and kind of modeling and positioning at the same time. Okay. So there we go. We got that. Now I'm going to try and make this kind of like arc this way. Let me see how far I can go with this. Look at this. Hit extrude. Okay. Do the same thing. Keep going. So while I'm here, actually I can actually type these actual straight numbers if I want. I'll continue with the 3 number. Okay. And what I'll do is I'm going to continue scaling these a little bit. So you hit those little cubes, right? And scale down. Okay. And then I'm going to hit the little arc here. So I can rotate it again and again. Okay. And I get some rotation to it. Right? And I can start pulling on these arrows as well. Okay. So I'm getting somewhere with this. All right. Now, maybe I want to continue with this, and I don't feel like going back and forth to the buttons all the time, to the graphic interface. Okay. I can just type G, and I will continue the extrusion. Okay. You don't have to do this three part. I mean, when you're doing freeform, go ahead and do whatever you want. And if I hit scale, I'm going to keep scaling it, right? And now I got this tool with an arc thing here. Pull this down a little bit. I can hit this little circle here. Rotate it. Okay. And then I'll type G again. And you can keep it scaling out, okay? Like extruding out. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll scale this last bit down, something like this kind of tip. Okay. And maybe I'm going to pull this down a little bit. Streamline that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, maybe I want to do something similar here, right? But I want to do the same thing. I don't want to have to keep doing, I want to do it on one side and doing the other. So here's where I want to do that mirror again. So what I'll do is I'll set up symmetry. Object X. Okay. And you know, from these, I might want to have this swept back already. So, well, you know what? I'll modify that afterwards. I'll show you how to go back in and modify that edge. Okay. So here we go. So now I'm going to do the same thing. So now I have I picked both sides, right? So I just pick on one side and it's mirroring over the x-axis. So then I can go to extrude. Okay. Do the same thing. And then I'll turn symmetry off. Scale them down. Keep it down. Okay, I'm not going to do as much on this one. Rotate. Okay. And hit G. Looking like I got out of the tool. Okay, so let me the face again. So one thing when you're sweeping on two sides, you'll have to switch this. If you want to just extrude, it'll be fine. But if you want to do some of the other fancy stuff, you'll have to kind of remember to kind of do the extrusion. And so the extrusion works like that. But then to get to our little tools, we'll have to stop, switch that off. And then, but it allows you still to be in the tool. So I'm going to scale these down. And I'll do the little rotate thing. And I'll just do one more extrusion. Yeah, that makes me kind of do it again. Okay. So then I'll have to go to, I'll have to switch the symmetry on again. With the face. Oops, you know what? I'll switch it up with two over here. Switch it up to 8. Actually, you know what? There's a better way to do this. Let me show you a better way to do this. Let me just keep extruding these out, and then we will modify them, okay? It's keeping symmetry there, and then I'll squeeze them down. I'll show you a different way. There's always a different way to do things. Sometimes you find out with tools that something doesn't like. So all right. So now, with that one, because you can't scale while you're doing symmetry, what I'm going to do is we're going to do all these by edge loops. So we have symmetry on, so that you'll notice what's going to happen here. So I'll double click on this edge loops. You notice it ticked over there. Okay, it's the same thing. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to hit the scale tool. I'm going to scale these down together. Okay, and then generally with square ends, like with circular ends, it doesn't mind. You can double click and you'll get the edge loop on the edges or the last face, but it doesn't tend to like it on these. So let me click on these. Okay. Now you notice all these are, you can move all these things and we're keeping the symmetry for things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move. Okay. Okay. There we go. Now we have this kind of claw-like arcing thing going on here. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of build a base to this thing too. So what I'm going to do I'm going to be a little different. So I'm going to do a hit extrude. I'm actually going to take it down over here. Doesn't really matter. This doesn't matter. Symmetry on that. I'm trying to remember to turn it off. Okay, so if we go to extrude, I can also just take this down, right? Now, maybe I don't want to keep adding those subdivisions there. You can actually go over to this little tool widget here. And I say I want to put 4 subdivisions in there. See? Look at that. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go from the side view here. So I'm going to hit my space bar and go to all my views. And I'm going to hit Shift F to frame on all windows here. Okay. And I'm going to hit space bar again. And what I'm going to do is for this one, this works really good with the vertices. Remove these vertices. Now I want it to start being a little heavier down here. I want this to kind of be a base, okay? So here's another thing too, so what you can do too is, if you like grids, if you like snapping grids and things like that, you can make sure these are on grid 22. So if you wanted, like vertices are nice. You can just snap them all, the whole thing. You can window select them, and then just snap them. Okay. All right. So, but what I want to do is I want to just make this more of like a base, right? So now I want to just pick on some of these, and I'm going to start making this a little heavier on the bottom, okay? I'll just arc out a little bit. I want this to go really sweeping back. And then I have a little sweep here. So you can start to see too how you can start making forms by just moving these points around. And we're going to do a lot of this later in the semester. This is kind of key to shaping out your forms. Okay. Right. So I'm not going to go too crazy. Okay, that's good. All right, so now I can zoom out a little bit. I can take a look at these. Now I might want to start adjusting some of these. I want to move this back a little bit, tighten it up a little bit in there, move this in a little bit. You can start just pulling on these things, right? So now I'm starting to variation into these things. You're going to want a little bit more sweep in there. Okay. This and that. But you can just continue. You get the idea of this, okay? Okay, so now we're going to go into this view here. So now I've made this kind of swooping kind of form thing here, right? So you're like, all right, this looks okay. Maybe I want to sweep these back again. I don't necessarily have to turn on symmetry. I can just select both these at the same time, right? Under the top view. And then because you are in a digital world, I mean, it's pretty easy to move around, and especially if you're making sculptural forms. It's definitely always good to keep moving around your object, okay? And this is how, a digital artist would do this stuff. They would just keep looking, moving around. Okay, so now I hit F and see the whole thing together. Maybe I do want to have the symmetry on because I want to start adjusting and I don't want to have to keep going back and forth on each side. So I'm going to put object X symmetry on again. So I'm going to pull this. You notice that's selected over there. This is where symmetry starts becoming really useful. Do that there. Maybe I want to just kind of arcing around. Maybe I want to rotate these. I want this kind of swoop instead of cutting that direction. So I'm just showing you different ways that, you would use these kind of tools in conjunction, okay? Yeah, so now we're getting this kind of cool sweeping arc thing here, okay? So now you're like, all right, this looks good, but it's kind of boxy, right? So let me turn this off. Okay, and also too, oops. always make sure to save your files. So when you're working on stuff, you never know. It might lock up, it might crash. You might want to save at certain points along the way because maybe you're like, oh, this is interesting, so I want to save it here, but maybe I want to keep modeling it. But what if I want to get back to it? So then you go over File, Save Scene As, and then I would type in like Freeform _ and just saving files is easy. So you can save as many as you want. These files aren't too large, so I'm going to call this Freeform 01. Okay, maybe I want to make some modifications, but I'm not really sure. So then I always save lots of iterations of things. And like maybe you're looking around here, maybe you don't want to have the grid on, so maybe we'll turn the grid off. Now it's because this is not really an architectural model. So you could add divisions to this thing, right? So we're gonna go to object mode here. You hit Q to be in pick mode to get out of rotate mode. Okay. So you could just do this part here, add divisions, right? But all that does is just keep dividing it, right? So that's all it's doing is just making the same object with just more polygons from the surface, okay? So you may, though, want to start smoothing this stuff out now, right? Because this doesn't look all that great now. So I'm going to just do Control-C and Control-V, okay? So I'm going to do one more. Yeah. All right, so now I am at where I started. So now, instead of just doing a add divisions, you can also do a smooth, right? So now you notice what's happening. Now it's kind of averaging all this stuff out, right? So you're starting to get something cool going on here, okay? It's starting to look good, okay? So maybe though, maybe I want to take hold volume a little bit more. So let's see what happens if I just give it a 1 subdivide before I actually start smoothing. And add some divisions here, okay? So let's just add divisions. So that just gave you more divisions on the model. And then maybe give it a smooth, okay? So there you go. So now you're starting to hold volume a little bit more. But, you still got this little chunkiness here. So maybe the other way is a little better. Okay? I think I'll go back to just the pure smoothing. But sometimes you got to experiment around and see what's going to work best, okay? Smooth. There we go. And then you can hit smooth again. So then now you see, now you're starting to get this kind of sweet looking little arc thing here, okay? And I noticed there might have been a little group in here. So here's also why you want to have your iterations. Seems like something got wonky over there. So I'm gonna do a quick fix. Because what happens is, so you can notice here, if I go to add division, you can do it here this time. Looks like a minor butt. Smooth? No. For some reason there, yeah. There's some kind of little wonkiness. Okay. So it doesn't come when you do divisions. So there's another thing too. There might be somehow when you're extruding, sometimes you have to watch out with extruding. You probably won't have to worry, worry about this right now. But I just want to go over it just in case. This is good. It kind of showed up. So sometimes there might be another kind of some vertices or some edges in there. So when you do extrusion, sometimes if you don't move it, or it just makes this extra thing in there. So if you see some wonkiness, what you do is pick the vertices you saw you had some trouble with, right? And then if you go to edit mesh, if you go to merge, that usually cleans up whatever the little wonky polygons were. Let's see if it did it. Yeah, see, look at that. What happened was, the reason we were getting that little extra edge in there, I'm glad this actually came up. I usually don't like a fluke in a demo, but it's good because sometimes this does happen, especially with extruding polygons. Okay, so now that's all clean. Because what happened was there was a kind of invisible extrusion in there, and it was subdivided. So I thought it was an extra thing. Okay, so now I'm gonna hit it one more time with smooth. Yeah, now it's nice and clean. Okay, so now look at this thing. This is very different. This looks pretty cool, actually. You know, like that blocky thing, that didn't look so cool, but this looks pretty nice. Okay, so now what I would do at this point now is I would go to File, Save Scene As, and I would call it O2. And then a lot of times I'm pretty explicit with names, so I would say smooth also, just so I know when I'm looking at iterations like what you know what I did there. I'm like, oh, okay, that one's smooth. Okay. All right. So there you go. That was a quick freeform sculpture, and it all started from a single cube, and all we did was use the modeling toolkit with extrusions and a bunch of scaling and a bunch of picking points and edges and just very few modifications, and we came up with something kind of nice looking here. Okay, so there you go. So that's one lesson on freeform modeling. There's a few others, and this is going to be fun because this is kind of introducing to like real digital sculpting. Okay, all right, we'll leave this lesson here.